This training is designed for anyone new to Amazon Web Services so you can gain proficiency in AWS services and make informed decisions about IT solutions based on your business requirements. This training helps you gain the knowledge required to start working on your projects using AWS. The history and fundamental elements of Amazon Web Services, AWS, and shows you how to navigate the AWS Management Console. The AWS Management Console is the graphical user interface, GUI, to access AWS. AWS is also accessible through the command line interface, AWS CLI, and software development kits, SDKs. This module discusses the AWS Global Infrastructure and basic principles of deploying on AWS. By the end of this module you will be able to describe the history of AWS, recognize the AWS Global Infrastructure, navigate the AWS Management Console. Jeff Bezos incorporated the company in 1994, and Amazon.com was launched in 1995 as an online bookstore. Amazon.com, Inc. is an American multinational electronic commerce company with its headquarters in Seattle, Washington. It is the world's largest online retailer. Amazon has continued to grow and officially launched Amazon Web Services, AWS, in 2006. More came after, including Amazon Publishing, the Kindle, Amazon Game Studios, and Amazon Art. After over a decade of building and running the highly scalable web application Amazon.com, the company realized that it had developed a core competency in operating massive-scale technology infrastructure and data centers and embarked on a much broader mission of serving a new customer segment, developers and businesses, with a platform of web services they can use to build sophisticated, scalable applications. Today, AWS is the fastest-growing multi-billion-dollar enterprise IT vendor in the world. Amazon Web Services is 10+ years in the making. Amazon Web Services, also abbreviated to AWS, is a collection of remote computing services called web services. These web services make up a cloud computing platform offered via the Internet. We deliver web-based cloud services for storage, computing, networking, databases, and more. The AWS mission is to enable businesses and developers to use web services to build scalable, sophisticated applications. Web services is another name for what people now call the cloud. Enterprise customers. Enterprise cloud computing with AWS can help IT increase innovation, agility, and resiliency, all while reducing cost. With AWS, you can build enterprise cloud solutions quickly and without a big upfront investment. The free tier allows you to prototype virtually any application for free. Startup customers, our innovations free you to scale quickly, go to market faster, and control costs. AWS Activate is a free program with resources for startups to get the most out of AWS from day one. Public sector customers, AWS offers scalable, cost-effective cloud services that public sector customers can use to meet mandates, reduce costs, drive efficiencies, and accelerate innovation. Cloud computing provides a simple way to access servers, storage, databases, and a broad set of application services over the Internet. AWS owns and maintains the network-connected hardware required for these application services, while you provision and use what you need via a web application. Trade capital expense for variable expense. Instead of investing heavily in data centers and servers before you know how you're going to use them, you can pay only when you consume computing resources and pay only the amount you consume. Benefit from massive economies of scale. By using cloud computing, you can achieve a lower variable cost than you can get on your own. Because usage from hundreds of thousands of customers is aggregated in the cloud, providers such as Amazon Web Services can achieve higher economies of scale, which translates into lower pay-as-you-go prices. Stop guessing capacity. Eliminate guessing about your infrastructure capacity needs. When you make a capacity decision before deploying an application, you often end up either sitting on expensive idle resources or dealing with limited capacity. With cloud computing, these problems go away. You can access as much or as little as you need and scale up and down as required with only a few minutes' notice. Increase speed and agility. In a cloud computing environment, new IT resources are only ever a click away, which means you reduce the time it takes to make those resources available to your developers from weeks to just minutes. This results in a dramatic increase in agility for the organization, because the cost and time it takes to experiment and develop is significantly lower. Stop spending money on running and maintaining data centers, focus on projects that differentiate your business, not the infrastructure. Cloud computing lets you focus on your own customers, instead of on the heavy lifting of racking, stacking, and powering servers. Go global in minutes. Easily deploy your application in multiple regions around the world with just a few clicks. This means you can provide a lower latency and better experience for your customers simply and at minimal cost. Many of our services and terminology have analogs in the traditional IT space. This side-by-side comparison shows how AWS offerings and services relate to a traditional infrastructure. AWS Cloud Computing provides a simple way to access servers, storage, databases, and a broad set of application services over the Internet. AWS owns and maintains the network-connected hardware required for these application services, while you provision and use what you need. This slide shows how AWS Foundation Services are categorized. This slide shows how AWS Foundation Services are categorized. This slide shows how AWS Platform Services are categorized. This slide shows how AWS Platform Services. AWS regions are geographic locations that contain multiple availability zones. Availability zones consist of data centers clustered in a region. Each availability zone is engineered to be isolated from failures in other availability zones. AWS is steadily expanding its global infrastructure to help customers achieve lower latency and higher throughput and to ensure that your data resides only in the region you specify. As you and all customers grow their businesses, AWS will continue to provide infrastructure that meets your global requirements. The AWS GovCloud, US, region is an isolated region designed to allow U.S. government agencies and customers to move sensitive workloads into the cloud by addressing their specific regulatory and compliance requirements. AWS offerings and services are available by region, so you may not see all regions available for a given service. You can run applications and workloads from a region to reduce latency to end users while avoiding the upfront expenses, long-term commitments, and scaling challenges associated with maintaining and operating a global infrastructure. Each region is a separate geographic area that has multiple locations isolated from each other, known as availability zones. Each availability zone is isolated, but the availability zones in a region are connected through low-latency links. Where natural disasters or fault lines are a consideration, AWS isolates its availability zones so that they are not easily affected at the same time. For example, Where earthquakes are a problem, AWS would not build two availability zones on the same fault line. When you launch an instance, you can select an availability zone or let AWS choose one for you. If you distribute your instances across multiple availability zones, you can design your application so that if an instance fails, an instance in another availability zone can handle requests. AWS highly recommends that you provision your compute resources across multiple availability zones. AWS highly recommends that you provision your compute resources across multiple availability zones. If you have multiple instances, you can run them across more than one availability zone and get added redundancy. If a single availability zone has a problem, all assets in your second availability zone are unaffected. Edge locations help lower latency and improve performance for end user.